Thank you, Umberto. Now, actually, you raised a few points which Juan Riva of Sovardias, who couldn't be here today and was supposed to be a panel member, wanted to raise as well. And we as extra-European ship owners, of course, share your views. What we have seen is indeed that in many European countries, they will not be ready by 2013 for electronic exchange of customs procedures, and that is the only way that you can do advanced cargo declaration. Now, since I referred to Juan Riba, he also raised this point about the possibility of short sea ship owners to cooperate, to have joint services, joint ports, joint shuttles, and what have you. And when I introduced this session, I referred to the consortia regulation and to the taking out of chiefly by container. Having you here, Mark, could you comment on my suggestion there?
Thank you, Alphonse. Yes, I think the consortia regulation is a very helpful piece of legislation for short sea shipping as well as the deep sea shipping community. It is fairly liberal. As some of you know, its stigma is that it has a market share threshold. But most competition lawyers these days are unfrightened by market share thresholds because of the principle of self-assessment. And the days when one had to notify agreements, cooperation agreements, for example, between shipping lines to the European Commission are long gone. There was a lot of protest about it, but there is actually a very great benefit, not just to the legal profession, I hasten to add, but to business, in that business has to decide for itself now whether it complies with competition law. Now that sounds complicated, but it's actually, in my view, and I'm slightly out on a limb in saying this, it actually makes life easier because it's clear from the block exemption type approach that if you are below the market share threshold, you have no problem. But it is equally clear, and in fact, I can tell you that I was one of the lawyers that lobbied the Commission to put this in the block exemption regulation. It states that that doesn't mean that you necessarily are breaching competition law. So in the short sea shipping context, it could be justified to have quite significantly higher market shares. It all depends on who else is competing in the market and to ensure that there is not the elimination of effective competition in the relevant market concerned. Because otherwise, the principles of the block exemption for consortia would apply in an individual agreement context where self-assessment is applied. And what do I mean by that? There are 4 conditions for exemption in the 3rd paragraph of what has become Article 101 of the Treaty of Lisbon. Yes, Article 101, paragraph 3, and I think Francesco Lauro says he wants to have this conference each year. I warn you, you better check each year whether the number from 85 to 81 and now 101 changes, but the conditions for exemption are the same, and they are, I would say, relatively easy to satisfy in the short shipping context.
Absolutely, of course, the most difficult one is to see whether the restrictions are indispensable, which is very subjective, I would have thought, depending whether you talk to your lawyer or to the Commission, DG Comp. Now, having said this, and since we are well in time, I wonder whether there are questions or comments or suggestions from the audience on primo, let's call it, the cooperative agreements in short sea shipping, and secundo, on aid programs such as Marco Polo and Motorways of the Sea, which is part of the Trans-European networks, whether some of you have questions or comments on a possible distortion of competition, which shouldn't happen actually, but apparently there have been some cases which have been sent to the Commission. So is anybody in the audience wanting to put forward a question? Or, yes, I got a comment over there. Could you mention your name? Because I don't know you at least.
So, good morning, everybody. My name is Fabrizio Vettosi. So I have 2 questions for Mr. Masucci and Mr. Affinita about the eco bonus. You mentioned it correctly. You mentioned the eco bonus. However, I remind you that the last budget law practically cancelled the eco-bonus, and addressing last financial resources for the 12th Trenitalia cargo and establishing the new ferro bonus as an alternative and competition to eco-bonus one. Second one, I'd like to ask to Mr. Giachino, but unfortunately I will not attend the dinner this night because I have to come back to Milan, and put a question to him regarding the new general logistic plan for Italy. So it seems that Mr. Giachino put on the middle of his plan the road as alternative to the sea and not vice versa. So what is your opinion about these 2 points?
Thank you, Umberto, and then...
maybe I reply on behalf of Giachino and you reply on behalf of the Minister, Tommaso. So, replying on behalf of Mr. Giachino, I mean, I must tell you that it was my point to Giachino that we should involve motorways of the seas in the logistic plan, and he put on board. So, I mean, I have not seen the final logistic plan, but he accepted that motorways of the seas, being Italy so much involved in the Mediterranean, as I said, with 8,800 kilometers of coast, it is in the interest of Italy to help the development of motorways of the sea, and it is essential for a logistic plan to put on board the motorways of the sea. Since, in fact, and I think he tried the right way. He went to the port of Genoa, he came to the port of Naples. He is doing around Italy more visit to the ports. He went also to Torino. So, I mean, also for inland transportation. Of course, Giachino is the Undersecretary of State with the competence for road transportation, which from one way is something that it is not really what we would expect. But we must also say that Mr. Giachino, what he did well. So I hope that now doing the logistic plan and putting on board also motorways of the sea and shipping, I am rather positive that he will understand that the motorways of the seas are part of the logistic plan. Tommaso.
Sì, è vero, per quanto riguarda l'ecobonus c'è un problema di finanziamenti perché abbiamo avuto, grazie anche al sottosegretario Giachino, impegni per il 2007 e il 2009, ricordavo prima 200 milioni di euro dati per questi 3 anni, come RAM stiamo completando l'istruttoria delle pratiche del 2009 e praticamente abbiamo finito. C'è un problema legato alla finanza pubblica italiana, ai vincoli, ahimè, del ministro Tremonti che tiene molto strette ovviamente le casse dello Stato italiano. Io però penso che grazie anche all'impegno del Ministro Matteoli in particolare sarà possibile avere un finanziamento aggiuntivo per quanto riguarda l'ecobonus, in particolare per il 2010 e il 2011, in attesa che diventi una misura europea e che quindi possa essere poi finanziato direttamente dalla Commissione, dalla Comunità Europea. Lei poi ha parlato anche del ferro bonus. Il ferro bonus è una novità. Anche questa è in attesa di emanazione il decreto ministeriale, credo che sia la firma del Ministro Matteoli in questi giorni, è una misura per la modalità ferroviaria a sostegno degli operatori che decidano di fare dei treni blocco, dei treni attraverso i quali trasportare ovviamente le merci, i contenitori o le merci in particolare, come alternativa al trasporto su strada. Non è in conflitto con l'ecobonus, è un'altra modalità alternativa al trasporto su strada. Io credo che l'impegno principale debba essere dell'Europa e dell'Italia quello di alleggerire il trasporto su gomma, il trasporto stradale che per quanto riguarda l'Italia impegna ancora l'85% del trasporto merci. Nel nostro Paese l'85% è su gomma con tutti i problemi problemi di congestione, di blocco anche del traffico che il trasporto su gomma realizza. Quindi io dico sia l'ecobonus che il ferrobonus sono strumenti assolutamente utili, opportuni per realizzare davvero quella multimodalità, cioè l'utilizzo di una pluralità di modalità di trasporto alternative al trasporto su strada. La dotazione del ferrobonus è di 50 milioni di euro per l'attivazione di questa misura, che sarà gestita anch'essa dalla nostra società, da RAM, che è stata incaricata dal Ministro di occuparsi anche del ferrobonus. Grazie.
Thank you, Tommaso. Just one thing I would like to add to what you said about bonuses for rail. The external costs of short sea shipping are much lower than the one of transport by rail, taking everything into account. Now, having heard those two responses, are there any other questions from the audience? Or you're all ready for coffee, I guess? Then I would like to conclude by, first of all, noting, and I noted, support for ratifying the Rotterdam rules from this audience. You are wholeheartedly said that you are in favor of ratifying the Rotterdam rules. Second, that we want less bureaucracy in short sea shipping, and in particular for customs. Then also quite important that the consortia exemption can be applied on short sea shipping. If there would be a problem with the market share, then you can assess it against the 4 conditions of 101.3. Also a plea, which Umberto, amongst others, said, and Juan Riva as well, for better hinterland connections, investments in ports, also efficiency of ports, quite important. And then last but not the least, to promote all over Europe a system similar or the same as the eco-bonus. May I thank the speakers and the panel, and I guess coffee is ready by now. Thank you.